Hey guys, really quickly about the use of nCloth. I'm going to show you the utmost basics of it, and then based on that, you can decide if you want to, create it. Basically, the cloth simulation is based on two things. One of them is the cloth. So let's say this is the piece of object that I want to make my cloth. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say, let's say it has more segments. Obviously, you can imagine there is a trade-off between the number of the segments, the speed of the simulation. That's what we call a simulation when the cloth gets simulated, basically. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is the object that it's supposed to collide with. So if you imagine that you're developing something like clothing for a human, then the body of the human or a proxy version of it becomes the collider or the collision object, and the cloth becomes the clothing articles that they have. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go to the effects. In here, I'm going to go to create nCloth. So this becomes a cloth, and also there is a new nucleus in here, which is the solver that basically simulates the whole process. Then I'm going to go to my object, the object that I want to be a collision. Then I'm going to go up in here and I'm going to say in here in my nCloth, I'm going to say this is a passive collider. So a collider basically will collide with the cross objects. I'm going to say, let's go up to say 500 frames. I'm going to animate this. And as you can imagine, the cloth simulation basically happens. So this is the very basics of it. Then the other thing that you probably care about is that some parts of the cloth simulation should be sticky, basically. Imagine if you're wearing if you have a character that's wearing a skirt, and then at the waist level, you want to have a few points in the skirt model that they are basically stuck to the waist of the character, and then the bottom of the skirt is being animated. So you can select some places, such as, let's say I'm going to select these guys. I'm going to go to constraint and I'm going to say I can use any of the constraints in here. You can constrain a component or a component to a component of another object. You can constrain a point to a surface of something. I'm going to use the simplest one. I'm going to use a transform constraint, which basically says these guys, they are not going to move. So now we get this cloth simulation, which is basically simulating the cloth while at the same time maintaining the position of some of these guys. And obviously this you can parent it to the joint structure, the controllers of your character, and they can animate that. So for instance, I can actually select this constraint in here. I can say there's a keyframe in here a little bit further in time. Let's say the keyframe is in there. So basically it moves, and as it's moving, it basically carries the cloth with it while the cloth is at the same time being animated against the collision of this sphere. Finally, if you select your nCloth and you go to your attributes editor in here, you have some dynamic properties, such as the stretch resistance or the bend resistance, or the tension of it, or the restitution angle of it, or things that, or rigidity of it, or matters as such, which are basically the specifics of different clothing material, basically. If you come in here, you can basically go to the presets and you can choose one of the many presets for say silk or t-shirt or airbag or whatever that is. These are the default physical characteristics that they have measured and they have input into this thing that basically allows you to do your calculations. Keep in mind, this is a slightly heavier process. Make sure that you know what you're doing and it's worth doing it for your projects. And if it is, then by all means try it.